At some point, almost every person building wealth asks the same question. Am I on track? Am I behind? And compared to who exactly? Today we are going to answer all of that with real 2026 numbers broken down by age so you can see exactly where you stand and what to do about it. Now, before we get into the data, I want to say something important. These benchmarks are not meant to shame you, and they are not meant to make you feel like you have already won. They are meant to give you a clear, honest picture because you cannot navigate toward a destination you cannot see. The first thing you need to understand before we look at any number is the difference between mean and median net worth and why it matters enormously for how you interpret this data. The mean is the average you probably learned in school. Add everything up, divide by the number of people. The problem with mean net worth is that a small number of ultra-wealthy households, we are talking billionaires, pull that average so far up that it becomes almost meaningless for the typical person trying to measure their own progress. The median is the number right in the middle. Half of people are above it, half are below. For understanding where the typical American actually stands, the median is the honest number. We are going to look at both, because together they tell a story that neither one can tell alone. And just so we are all on the same page, when I say net worth, I mean everything you own minus everything you owe. Assets minus liabilities. Your 401k, your home equity, your savings, your investments, minus your mortgage, your car loan, your credit card balance, your student debt. Think of it like a banana tree. What matters is not how many bananas grew this year, it is how many are actually left after the squirrels took their cut. Those squirrels are your debts. Do not let the squirrels win. Let's start at the beginning of the wealth-building journey, under 35. According to the most recent Federal Reserve data updated for 2026, the median net worth for Americans under 35 is approximately $39,000. The mean, remember skewed heavily by high earners, sits around $176,000. If you are under 35 and your net worth is below $39,000, you are in the lower half of your age group. But here's the critical context. This is the age range with the most student debt, the lowest starting salaries, the highest likelihood of recent job transitions, and the least amount of time for compound growth to have done any work. Being behind at this stage is not a character flaw. It is often just math and timing. What matters far more than your current net worth under 35 is the direction and the rate of change. A 28-year-old with a net worth of $15,000 who is saving aggressively and has no high-interest debt is in a significantly stronger position than a 33-year-old with a $50,000 net worth who is adding credit card debt every month. The snapshot matters less than the trajectory at this stage. The single highest leverage move for anyone under 35 is eliminating high-interest consumer debt first, then building a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, then maxing out any employer 401k match, in that exact order. Every dollar of high-interest debt you eliminate is a guaranteed return equal to that interest rate, which almost nothing in the market can reliably beat. Get those 3 foundations in place, and you have positioned yourself to begin compounding seriously. Moving into the 35 to 44 age bracket, and this is where the data starts to get really interesting, and for some people, a little uncomfortable. The median net worth for this group in 2026 sits at approximately $135,000. The mean jumps to around $548,000. That gap between median and mean is enormous, and it tells you that wealth concentration is already significant, even at this relatively early life stage. The 35 to 44 window is what financial planners often call the decade of compounding acceleration. If you started investing in your late 20s, the compound growth on those early contributions is just beginning to show up meaningfully in your balance. Conversely, if you delayed investing until your mid-30s, you are now racing to catch up. And the math of delayed compounding is genuinely punishing. The biggest wealth destroyers in this age group are lifestyle inflation and the fixed expense trap. This is the decade when incomes typically rise significantly, and when mortgages, car payments, child care costs, and subscription creep tend to rise just as fast or faster. The people who build real wealth in their 30s are not necessarily the highest earners. They are the people who deliberately let their savings rate rise faster than their lifestyle. If you are in this age group and your net worth is below $100,000, the most important thing to do is run an honest audit of your fixed monthly expenses, not your discretionary spending, your fixed costs. Mortgage or rent, car payments, insurance, subscriptions. These are the numbers that quietly compound against you, and they are often the first place significant money can be recovered. Now we move into the 45 to 54 range, the age group where the wealth gap between those who started early and those who didn't becomes most visible. The median net worth here in 2026 is approximately $247,000. The mean is just over $1 million. The first age group where the average crosses that psychological threshold, though again, the mean is heavily distorted by the top of the distribution. This is also the decade when many Americans begin to seriously engage with retirement math for the first time. The general benchmark you will hear from financial planners is that by age 50, you should have roughly 6 to 7 times your annual salary saved for retirement. For someone earning $80,000 a year, that means targeting somewhere between $480,000 and $560,000 in retirement accounts by their early 50s. If that number feels out of reach right now, you are not alone. The median data confirms that most Americans in this bracket are behind that benchmark. But there is still significant time to close the gap, especially because the IRS allows catch-up contributions at age 50. In 2026, anyone 50 or older can contribute an extra $7,500 per year to their 401k on top of the standard limit. And that catch-up window is one of the most underused tools in personal finance. Here's the thing about catch-up contributions. The name alone should be motivating. Honestly, if a monkey can swing from the "I have nothing saved" branch all the way to the "maximizing retirement contributions" branch, the trajectory is more important than where you are standing right now. The branch you grab next matters more than the one you missed. Grab the catch-up contribution branch. The 55 to 64 group is the last full decade before traditional retirement age. And the stakes for this bracket are the highest of any age group. Median net worth here comes in at approximately $364,000 in 2026. The mean sits around $1,300,000. Again, a wide gap that reflects the compounding advantage of those who invested early and consistently. For this age group, the benchmark target for most retirement planning frameworks is 10 to 12 times your annual salary in invested assets by the time you reach 65. At $80,000 a year in salary, that puts the target range between $800,000 and $960,000. The median of $364,000 makes clear that the majority of Americans in their late 50s are significantly below that target, and this is one of the defining financial anxieties of the 2026 economic landscape. The most impactful moves for this age group are maximizing all tax-advantaged accounts, 401k with catch-up, HSA if eligible, and IRA, while aggressively paying down any remaining high-interest debt. Social Security optimization also becomes critical in this window. The difference between claiming Social Security at 62 versus 70 can represent hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime benefits. And for most people who can afford to delay, waiting is one of the highest return financial decisions available. And finally, the 65 and older group, the people who have crossed the traditional retirement threshold. Median net worth for this group in 2026 is approximately $254,000. The mean is just over $1 million, but that median of $254,000 is the number that tells the real story about retirement readiness in America. $254,000, if withdrawn at the standard 4% rule, generates roughly $10,000 per year in portfolio income. Combined with Social Security, the average benefit in 2026 is approximately $22,000 per year. That puts the median retiree at roughly $32,000 in annual income. Whether that is enough depends entirely on where you live, what your fixed expenses look like, and whether you carry any debt into retirement. The data here is not comfortable, but it is honest, and understanding it is the only way to make decisions that actually change the outcome. Now, I want to step back from the age brackets for a moment and talk about what the data consistently shows actually drives net worth. Because the answer is not what most people assume. It is not income. Income correlates with net worth, but it does not determine it. And the research on this is both clear and counterintuitive. The Federal Reserve data shows that savings rate, the percentage of your income you consistently save and invest, is the single strongest predictor of net worth relative to income. Two people earning the same salary over the same 20-year period can end up with dramatically different net worths based almost entirely on how much of that income they kept and put to work. A person earning $60,000 with a 20% savings rate will consistently out-accumulate a person earning $120,000 with a 5% savings rate over any meaningful time horizon. The second driver is time in the market, not timing the market. The data on this is unambiguous across every historical period. Investors who stayed invested through volatility consistently outperformed those who tried to exit and re-enter at optimal moments. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now. The third driver is debt management, specifically the elimination of high-interest consumer debt before aggressively investing. Carrying a credit card balance at 22% interest while simultaneously trying to build a portfolio earning 8% annually is a mathematical loss every single month. High-interest debt is the single biggest wealth suppressor in the American personal finance landscape, and it rarely gets the urgency it deserves. There is one more layer to this conversation that is specific to 2026, and it is important enough that I want to address it directly. The macroeconomic environment right now is what analysts are calling a sideways market. Global growth is projected at roughly 2.6%, inflation remains elevated relative to historical norms, and market returns have been subdued compared to the exceptional decade that preceded 2022. This matters for how you interpret your net worth benchmarks, because the people hitting or exceeding these medians today largely benefited from the bull market of the 2010s. If your net worth is below the median for your age group, it does not necessarily mean you did anything wrong. It may mean you started your serious wealth-building journey during a harder macroeconomic window. The response to a sideways market is not to stop investing. It is to stay consistent, minimize fees, and make sure you are not bleeding returns through high-interest debt or unnecessary tax drag. The people who build meaningful wealth over the next decade will be the ones who kept investing steadily through the boring, frustrating middle period, not the ones who waited for conditions to feel better. So let's bring this all together into something actionable, because data without direction is just anxiety. If you are ahead of the median for your age group, that is genuinely worth acknowledging. But do not let it become complacency. The median is not the target. The median is the baseline. If you are behind the median for your age group, the most important reframe is this: net worth is a trailing indicator. It reflects the decisions and circumstances of the past, not the ones you are making right now. The decisions you make in the next 12 months, your savings rate, your debt paydown plan, whether you open that HSA, whether you increase your 401k contribution by even 2%, those are leading indicators, and they are entirely within your control. Regardless of where you land in the comparison, there are 3 moves that will improve your position from any starting point. First, calculate your actual net worth right now, today, so you have a real baseline instead of a vague feeling. Second, identify the single highest interest liability on your personal balance sheet and make eliminating it the top financial priority. Third, increase your savings rate by at least 1 percentage point this month. Not next quarter, not after the next raise, this month. 1 percentage point will not change your life immediately, but 1 percentage point now, and another in 6 months, and another after that. That is how people in the median quietly become people above it. I also want to acknowledge something that the data does not fully capture, and that is the emotional weight of this comparison. Checking your net worth against a national benchmark can feel motivating, or it can feel defeating, depending on the day and where you land. Both reactions are understandable, but neither one is a strategy, and the only thing that actually moves the number is consistent, intentional action over time. The numbers we covered today are not meant to be a final verdict on where you end up. They are meant to be a map, and now you have one. Where you go from here is entirely up to you. If this video helped you get a clearer picture, hit subscribe, because every week on Monkey Money we break down real financial data with real analysis and zero fluff. And drop a comment right now telling me your age bracket and whether you are above or below the median, because I want to know what this community looks like. And I read every single response. See you in the next one.